Are you a Fast and Furious fanatic? Have you ever considered what these movies would be like if Disney got a hold of them? Okay, most people haven't, but once you entertain the idea, you just might want to see what these movies would be like. Well, get ready, because we are full of ideas for a Disney-Pixar-fied Fast and Furious franchise. So celebs love to test out their voice acting chops in animated films, almost as much as we love to recognize their familiar voices while we're watching them. So, the first thing we're sure about for a Fast and Furious Disney remake is an animated version of Dom Toretto with Vin Diesel reprising his role. This time, of course, Diesel will just be providing the voice. As for how he looks, we can picture Dom looking a little something like a hairless version of Mariano from Encanto.
Everything okay?
It just fits as far as we're concerned. And while we've seen plenty of stars steal the show in their voice acting debuts, this would actually be far from the first time Vin Diesel has provided the voice for an animated character. He played the titular character in The Iron Giant.
I am not a gun.
As well as Groot in the Guardians of the Galaxy franchise.
I am Groot.
So not only do we know that no one else could play Dom quite like he can, but we know he'll be able to pull it off even if we can't see him. Come on, who doesn't love Groot's voice?
I am Groot.
He says, welcome to the frickin' Guardians of the Galaxy.
While plenty of folks would argue that Vin Diesel is one of the biggest parts of the Fast and Furious movies, most of us would agree that it's actually the cars. Cars are a big part of Fast and Furious, hence the name. But we think that the film's cars need a major change to fit into the Disney universe. Like, for starters, we're not gonna have to bring these cars to life, like, well, the movie Cars. Sure, the cars in Cars don't actually have people driving them, and that's an important part of Fast and Furious. So that complicates the anthropomorphizing of the vehicles just a little bit, but we think the new Fast and Furious franchise can include a bit of buddy cop dynamic between the cars and their drivers. Of course, all of the coolest cars will make an animated appearance. Speaking of which, if you happen to love cool cars making animated appearances, your favorite celebs making TV appearances, or like basically anything else interesting in the TV and movie world, now is the perfect time to like and subscribe to The Things for more videos like this one. Fans of the original The Fast and the Furious film know that car hijackers are a pretty big plot point of the movie. Yet, since this version will have sentient cars, there's certainly a new twist on the whole carjacking thing. It's pretty difficult to adapt that first film without including car hijackers, but since these cars now have personalities, this will be more of a kidnapping/ransom situation in the Disney version. And, of course, things will have to work out for the best because, well, it's family friendly. Drifting is an important part of the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. And since the cars now have their own opinions, we think it's only logical that the cars themselves now love to drift. Come on, even as non-cars, we can admit that that looks pretty fun. It's like roller skating for vehicles. And speaking of Tokyo Drift, we can't help but picture what the city chase scenes would look like if Pixar actually got a hold of them. We can imagine Disney/Pixar animating a version of Tokyo beautifully, but we wonder whether it may be even more interesting for them to create a fantastical new city like they have plenty of times before. We've seen some amazing fictional animated cities in plenty of different movies and TV shows, from Zootopia to Porto Rosso from Luca. Of course, all of our favorite animated cities have borrowed some obvious inspo from real-life cities. If Disney, Pixar created a new fictional city for their own Fast and Furious franchise, we can only imagine how cool this city would look as the cars cruised around in it. And we think a Tokyo-inspired brand new city would make for a super cool addition to the movies. So while some elements of the franchise, like the cool setting, are easy to translate into a family-friendly version, there's only one elephant in the room that isn't. The element in question? Well, Too Fast, Too Furious has some pretty adult themes like, crime.
Boys enjoy the show.
Those who know Fast and Furious know that this one will also need some PG rating-ifying, so the Disney version will have to change a few things to make this a bit more family-friendly. We think theft is a fine concept to leave in a Disney movie. Like, what kid hasn't seen Home Alone, right? And any particularly violent moments will have to be altered. Oh, and as for any car crashes, since these cars are now sentient, we're gonna have to curb the car crashes just a little bit. No pun intended. Car crashes are either going to have to end with a happy ending for the cars, or they'll have to teach a life lesson. We all remember how what happened to Doc Hudson was handled in Cars 2. Sad? Yes. Appropriate? Also yes. Disney knows how to do it, so they'll have to make it happen again for Too Fast, Too Furious. Or should we call it Too Fun, Too Friendly now? Fast 5 has some familiar faces, and we think their voices joining the cast would make for another great crossover for Fast and Furious and its animated remake. Michelle Rodriguez plays Letty in the original Fast and Furious franchise. We feel like we'd recognize Rodriguez's voice anywhere, so why shouldn't she reprise her role?
What's it gonna be?
We're not the first folks to think she'd fare well as a voice actor for an animated film. She provided the voice of Paz for the 2013 DreamWorks movie Turbo, as well as Smurfstorm in Smurfs: The Lost Village. So, Michelle Rodriguez is an old pro at voice acting, and she's got another co-star in Fast 5 who knows a thing or two about voice acting. Like, did you know that Eva Mendes appeared on an episode of the beloved kids show Bluey? Yep, she played a yoga instructor.
Lean forward and raise that right leg off the ground.
So we're thinking she should come back to play Monica once more. The Fast and Furious franchise has had quite a star-studded cast over its 22-year run, and we think that an animated version of the franchise would welcome quite a few of those familiar faces. Or should we say voices, as well as some new ones?
Toretto is back, baby!
While many things would change as a result of the switch from action film franchise to a series of animated family-friendly flicks, the themes about the importance of family would be a great common ground between the franchises.
This is your family. It's who you are.
All fans know that the Fast and Furious franchise loves family. In fact, when added up all together over the course of 9 movies, family is mentioned a whopping 75 times.
Family.
The importance of loving and staying close to your family is something that is important for kids to learn about, so we think themes like this would be ideal for an updated franchise. By the same token, you have to remember when Dom also famously says,
I don't have friends. I got family.
and we think the concept of found family and treating those you love most the way you do your family is another great lesson for plenty of kids to learn. Like, what better way to make something family-friendly than to talk about how important family is, right? And that's something Fast and Furious already has going for it. All right, we know what some of you may be thinking. If you've ever heard of a little something called Fast and Furious Spy Racers, then you might be wondering, wait a second, didn't they already do this? Well, the short answer is no. But there actually was an animated adaptation of the Fast and Furious franchise. In 2019, a DreamWorks animated Netflix series called Fast and Furious Spy Racers premiered. The series ran for 2 seasons and 52 episodes, ending in 2021. Rather than being an actual animated adaptation of the Fast and Furious film franchise, Fast and Furious Spy Racers was more like a spin-off of the movies. It followed a group of crime-fighting teenagers. The leader of the group was Tony Toretto, who just so happened to be the cousin of a certain someone who goes by the name of Dom. And like, the fact that they were teenagers helped solve some of the innate problems with making the Fast and Furious movies a bit more family-friendly, but we've got to admit, we're still holding out for that Disney-Pixar version. But what do you think about this idea? What would you like to see in a Disney version of the Fast and Furious franchise? Let's chat about it in the comments. And for more videos like this one, remember to like and subscribe to The Things.